Hey guys, James West here. It's time for another book review. Today I'm going to talk about Uniting the Heavens by Emily English. This is a fantasy novel following the house apprentice Aaron, who essentially finds himself trying to unravel a conspiracy that threatens his town, the house he serves, eventually himself. So it's a really fun story with everything from gods to mages in it, and I honestly love reading it. Now, one thing I do want to say right now is that this book is definitely from the mature section of my library. Right. I think it's actually listed on Amazon as an actual adult fantasy. See, it could probably work out. It could probably work as a high school young adult level read, but this one is not one for the kids. I'm saying that right now. Now that's not to say the more mature content in the book is particularly bad or anything. In fact, this actually has some of the most well used content on that front that I've ever seen. In no small part because when Emily English was writing she actually wrote it as a mature adult, which is something I wish I could say for a few authors. Now, one thing I really want to praise this book for is how it uses changing perspectives throughout the book. And no, I'm not just talking about focusing on one guy in a house, then changing it to one guy in a marketplace. That's not what I'm talking about. In this book, it can, well, yeah, that actually does have that kind of change in perspective, but it also has it's just changing from one person in a room having a conversation to the other person in that conversation. And it's actually a very, very well done, and it's just really, really well done in this book. Look, not counting this particular story, I've only seen like one, maybe two books try and go for what this one did, and Uniting the Heavens just blows them both out of the water easily on that front. Particularly because you kind of get this sort of sense of a cat and mouse effect by the end, and throughout the book. And just that, especially given the fact that there's no visuals in the books, there's no illustrations, and so this book takes full advantage of that, and frankly I just love it. Now I also really want to talk about the main character Aaron in this book, well, particularly because he was a big reason why this book got a lot of points with me. In terms of personality, now Aaron, like I said before, Aaron is a house apprentice, which basically means he's an apprentice historian / librarian. So as you might imagine, he's smart, intelligent, and also the book makes a very strong point about mentioning that he is apparently very handsome as well. Now, on that point, I do want to just say Emily English actually has that working more against Aaron than for him, and throughout most of the book. So I am glad that she went that way on that front. Aaron's also rather clumsy, and I'm not just talking about tripping over himself and falling down. Though there are a couple scenes of that in the book, which actually got pretty funny. It's in the book. It's much more along the lines of him saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, and he's actually pretty self-conscious about it. To me, that actually makes the character much more relatable. Because I think a lot of us have felt that same way about ourselves at some point in our lives. So we just said something really stupid and weren't sure why we did it, or just talked without thinking. And it's something that we've all done. And frankly, I find that particular character trait way more relatable and way less annoying than having the main character be some sort of a short-tempered, hot-headed guy right, who just keeps getting his buns pushed by some other guy. Now, while Aaron being clumsy makes him relatable, one thing that in my book makes him really likable, well, as a main character, is just the fact that the book makes it very clear how caring he is. Sprinkled throughout the book, there are moments where Aaron is just within our character, whether it's something as emotionally draining as trying to comfort someone following a tragedy, or 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 something lighthearted, like him playing with his little sister. It really does a lot to show that he honestly does care about the people around him, and he's not some selfish guy. Right? In fact, there are some really moments of pure selflessness you get from him. And honestly, it's really hard for me not to like this character. I'm just gonna say. Now, one last thing I want to talk about with this book is the fact that, as I mentioned before, there are gods in this book. Now, for any of my religious viewers out there, I do want to point out how I'm using gods with a little g, and also I'm talking about gods in the sense of what you see in a fantasy story, or I think this description works for this book too, to what you might see in an anime as well. Well, and that yes, there are gods in this book, but they have limitations. And also they act like, and also for all intents and purposes, they actually do act like a pretty average human being, in personality wise too. But for one thing, they're not omniscient. They don't know everything. In fact, when it comes to the gods in this book, one of the big dynamics you see between them is just that some of them trying to hide stuff from the others. Also, there's also a limitation that the gods in this book are bound by certain rules. Now, one rule that I actually really liked, and one that I thought was actually really clever when I thought about it, is that if a god or goddess is in the presence of a mortal, they can't use their powers. End of story. No exceptions. And to me, that was just a really clever mechanic to have in the story. Right? One, because it kept the gods from becoming OP, being kind of pretty broken power-wise. Right? But also, it actually created a pretty good dynamic in the story. Because if a god or goddess had to go into battle or anything, I think they have to consider, okay, whether there are people around, or if they know there are going to be people around, how they remember, okay, how am I going to do this? I can't use my powers. And it's just a really good dynamic, and it really does make for an interesting read. Now, in general, I really just love this book. I'm not going to lie, I had a fantastic time reading it. So much so that when I was writing the notes for this review, I literally just stopped myself and asked, okay, was there anything particularly bad about it? And the only thing that came to my mind was like one part of a scene that if I took points off because of it, it would have been for a really nitpicky reason. So yeah, I really can't find a good reason to deduct any points from it. It's just a really well written and fun story. Alright, so I have no problem giving it 5 stars. I really have no reason to give it less. In fact, my only complaint about it is that I have to wait for book 2, which, by the way, I'm dying to read. But that's it for now. So until next time, this is James West, sign off.